Welcome to Coinology, the podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Coinology. And I am sitting here today with a super dope female. I've been knowing her for quite some time. I have none other than Christal Jordan Jennings in the house. Thank you so much, Christal. Thank you for being here. No, I'm so honored that you're here because you've been on every main stage, on every major show, and you finally had the time to come down and sit with us this year. So Absolutely. I'm so excited about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Christal. You know, I've been knowing you for a long time, and one of the things I love about you is you've always been extremely transparent. You do not hold back. I think I even remember the very first time you and I actually met. We went all the way back, probably a decade ago. You and I both worked on the Shave Wise campaign.
Yes.
And I remember I was very familiar with you, but I was new to the industry. I had just, into the industry a couple of years prior to that. And I remember entering the room and saying, "Hi, I'm Ebony, da-da-da." He was like, "I'm not familiar." You weren't familiar. But the thing about it was you took the time out to make sure you made me still feel as if I belonged in the room. You were very open, caring. And from that point on, it was as if whenever I called you, I felt comfortable calling you, even though I was, quote unquote, new to the industry. And you were considered a vet at that point. Because how long were you in PR?
I've been in PR. Left high school and went to college and studied PR. So and my first PR job was in, the years are going to be crazy, but probably like 2002.
Okay.
So when I moved here to Atlanta, it was 2004. And my, first job was in publicist for agency then called Solstice Media Group. And they had every Black talent that you can imagine, from the affiliates to T.I. to Sierra, Boys to Men. The woman, Rhonda Baraka, who is a mentor of mine, she was the most brilliant publicist and just PR brain I have ever met. And I was honored to be able to, she hired me, just fresh out of coming here from Oklahoma. So I worked for her, and from 2005 to around 2007, I opened my own agency in 2008.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. Where are you from, Christal?
So I was born in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
Moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma when I was in elementary school. So I grew up on Black Wall Street, which people call it Black Wall Street now, but at that point it was just Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I knew there had been some horrible things that had happened there. The city was very much still burdened with that horrible legacy. So I grew up around a lot of friends and people that were dedicated to Black excellence, but didn't really know how they could reclaim that legacy. So it was like, I went to a school that Booker T. Washington in high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You had to have a certain GPA, but there was this immense sense of pride that had been passed down through generations, I believe, because of the legacy there. But there wasn't the spirit of entrepreneurship, because you got to remember, a lot of those people had had their businesses torn out from them. Their families had struggled to recover, but in recovery, they didn't really try to open businesses again. It just kind of sucked the life out of that community.
So coming to Atlanta wasn't anything new for you as far as seeing Black excellence there?
I will say no. And I'm very thankful for that experience, being in that community, because it was pushed. So when I got ready to move to Atlanta, and I remember talking to people about that, they said, "Oh, well, you fit right in," because, that's just, but I was a little intimidated because Atlanta was a city of entrepreneurs, and I didn't know anything about that. I'd worked for several corporate organizations there. I came here with the corporate mindset of trying to find a job. Went to work for this, like I said, this woman, Rhonda Baraka, who was in her 30s and had this company that was dominating, and so it was the first time I actually saw entrepreneurship in a way that made me, she could be there with her children. Her company was in her home. She had me and two other people come and work in the beautiful home. She was a great mother. Her and her husband worked together, and it really just showed me something I had never seen before.
The thing about it is, for me, because I come from Virginia, right? So Virginia is not big on entrepreneurship, and it's also not big on Black excellence.
Okay.
So when I moved to Atlanta, it was definitely an eye-opener experience for me, because I remember just being floored, because I drove down the interstate when I first came here to visit, and I saw a Mercedes, then another Mercedes, and another. No, that just wasn't the reality at that time for me. So to see Black people living the way they lived here, it was just an unheard of thing. So I can't even imagine growing up in an environment where that was normally fostered. So did you grow up in a 2-parent household?
No, and that's the interesting thing. In my home, it was, we struggled. But because my mother was brilliant enough to make sure that I was in, she always said, we may not have a lot, but I don't want this to be your mindset. So she put me in a school where, at that point I realized all those students were coming from middle class. It was very middle class background. So there were Mercedes, there were, people lived in beautiful homes. I lived across town in an apartment, and we struggled a lot as I was growing up, but I was in environments with people that did not, their struggle was nothing like mine. Now you get older, you have a different context. So I realized they probably had $3 or $4 more than we did.
Right.
But it felt very different. As a child, it felt very different. And so I'm thankful that my mother understood that the mindset was so important. I remember even with us being, at one point we were on welfare, and my mom would not, back then they had like the food stamps that were actually coupons. They were called food coupons. My mom would not let me touch them. She would not let my brother touch them. She said, I don't want you to ever think that this is normal. This is not normal, right? This is what we're doing right now, but I don't want you to ever get comfortable with this. And as a result, I didn't. And then I was around students that had a very different outlook. So, a lot of them came from 2-parent families, or families that you had a mother and a father both probably earning, 60 to 70 to 80,000 a year. So that looks very different than you have a mother that's struggling, on her own. So and then I had an uncle that, my uncle Mark Johnson is one of my mentors. He owned an IT company. So he sold his first company for $5 million. So I was exposed. I would go stay with him in Denver, Colorado, go skiing. It was just, I was always exposed to Black excellence, but I really feel like the Black excellence that impacted me most was my mom, who understood that it's your mentality, it's your mindset. We may not have a lot, but what we have, we're going to do the best we have with it.
That's deep. That's deep. So was it just you and your brother?
Just me and my brother and my mom.
And so education was a big deal in your household?
Education was everything to my mom. And my mother, I remember my mother telling me when I was probably like first or second grade, you're smart. And teachers would always was, straight A student, always top of the class. But hearing that you're smart makes you believe that you're smart. And so then you don't have anything, you cannot produce anything else, because that's what you feel like, this is what's required of me, this is what I do. I was also blessed to have a teacher. I remember high school, I had amazing teachers in high school. Booker T was an amazing place. Carl Williams and Miss Alexander. And Mr. Williams would say, I will accept this from another student because they don't have the talent that you do. You are a talented writer. You will not turn this in. You will do this over again. So I was constantly, that builds a confidence in you as a child to know that I am smart. I can do it. So I feel like by the time I got to college, the University of Oklahoma, where there were 23,000 white students, 1,000, Black students, I wasn't deterred by that because I had all this confidence from being around Black teachers and a mother that told me I was smart. So I felt very much like I belonged.
Really? So you never struggled with imposter syndrome?
I did struggle with imposter syndrome, but not for my intelligence. It was always because I knew we didn't have as much, right? So I would go, I remember for, cheering, I was a cheerleader in high school. So my mother didn't have the money to pay for it. I would work and do things. So a lot of times I felt like I didn't belong because of the finances. But I also knew that's something I could fix. I can go to college, I can get a good job, and I won't ever have to deal with that. But a lot of times I do feel like I had this feeling of being I don't deserve to be here because my home is broken. It was just me, my mom, my brother, and most of my friends, came from very different backgrounds.
The confusing thing for me when I was growing up was that I was smart, but I hid it. I grew up in a very urban type space where it wasn't celebrated by the other students to be smart. So you really didn't want people to know that, I'm going over here because I've got an AP class over here or whatever. But I did notice growing up that my teachers used to fancy me, if you would say. They liked me a lot. They used to always put me up for opportunities, and I would be shocked sometimes when, the student of the month or what, I'm like, me? So I think I struggled with imposter syndrome a lot coming up because I often wondered, me.
Yeah.
And even still talking to some of my colleagues growing up, they'll say, we always knew. We saw, but so it's good to know when you talk to other Black women to find out that everyone didn't suffer or struggle with that
particular way, right? I think with being a woman, being a woman is so complex. So I also grew up with my mother I felt like she was absolutely beautiful, but she would come to the school, kids would, oh my God, your mom is so pretty. And so I felt less than in that way, right? And my mother always told me I was smart. She never once said you were pretty. So I tell people, when you look at what young women are leading with, a lot of them, I just had this belief that I know I'm smart. I could hold on to that. I went to a school where everybody had a 3-point or better. Okay. You had to be in an AP. If you got a bad grade on a test, that was bad. You were laughed at, right? So it was, being smart didn't necessarily benefit you because everybody is smart.
Everybody was smart.
Everybody was smart because you had to take tests, you had to be, and you would get kicked out if you didn't keep your GPA up. So then it was it was very much about look. So I can, say that I suffered with a lot of imposter syndrome when it came to just the physical attributes, right? Because my mother was very fair skinned, and a lot of that was fancy. Where I was at in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was considered pretty. And then of course growing up, that's what we saw, right? So I thought I might not be the pretty girl, but I know that I'm a smart girl. So that's a different issue, but it still affects your sense of self.
It does. The unfortunate part is that many times as women, we don't spend enough time telling our daughters, you are beautiful and you're smart.
And yeah.
Yeah, not or. And I think then back in the day, people felt like, okay, if you're not beautiful, you better be smart.
Yes, absolutely.
or
absolutely.
else,
or
right?
Right.
And I think it's important too. Like, I celebrate my daughter's beautiful chocolate skin. I tell her all the time, I love your skin. It's so beautiful. I love the tone. I mean, because you have to celebrate. You
have to do all
and
of
I
it.
think all of us as Black women, no matter what our skin tone is, we do have to celebrate that, right? Because if we don't celebrate it, it's very easy for women to get caught up by the wrong type of guy.
Absolutely.
And someone tells you you're cute.
And then you haven't heard that before and you're excited.
And that's it.
And my mother, like I said, was very beautiful, constantly people, and no one said that about me. So she was fair skinned with hair down to her behind. I looked very different, than my mom. So without that from her, I just assumed, well, that must not be me. I have this over here.
Do you think in her mind that she probably, because of the environment and the way that you have the thought about light and dark, do you think that in her mind she may have thought, I love my baby, but...
Well, no, I asked her. Because I had a daughter, and my daughter's fair skinned like her, and so once this was probably maybe 10 years ago, so way past the age of that I probably needed to have the conversation. And my mom said, I knew you were pretty, but she said because for her, people had only focused on her outside, and she never felt like people looked at her for anything else. And so she didn't value the pretty. She said, I remember Mom, people would say, oh, you're beautiful. And she's like, oh, people say that all the time. Like it was for her, she said, Christal, I always thought you were pretty, but I didn't want you to feel like you didn't have more to offer. She felt like all people only focused on with her was her beauty. And that made her feel like she was less than in other areas. And so she loved the fact that she had this little girl that she felt like was so smart. She said, pretty just is, it's you should have already known that. And I was like, I didn't. I didn't.
It's important. It's important. And the reason why I think that's so important, because I remember Christal growing up, and I don't know that I yearned for it, but I don't remember hearing my parents say, oh, you're pretty, right? I remember the very first time realizing that maybe I could have been attractive is by my ex-boyfriend at the time when I was in college. His mother and his aunts made a sign, oh, she's so pretty. And I looked, I said, me? I mean, I didn't think I was ugly, but I just didn't think it was anything for someone to make a statement about it, right? So, and I think it's important because I remember when I heard it, you remember it? I remember it today, and I remember how it made me feel. And so, and I remember now my father, he doubts over my daughter and always talks about how beautiful she is. And I often say, but I don't remember anybody telling me I was pretty.
Yeah. It could be that generation. And then, like my mom said, she never wanted me to put my stock in that because she always felt like girls would put their stock in that and nothing else, you know. But I saw it was a great moment because she showed me her vulnerableness. She said because she was told she was pretty, she thought maybe she wasn't smart, and she didn't have any pride in that area. So she put all that into me. And I think a lot of times we give our children what we did not have, right? So I think, you know, in every aspect, I grew up in a broken family, so it was very important for me, for my children not to, because I wanted to give them what I didn't have. And for her, I mean, she did not, that was something that she felt like was a given, you know. And she said, you know, other people would tell me that all the time. And she said, you know, everyone else said you were pretty. I said, but your mom, you know, especially for me, my mom was my everything, you know. So,
especially when you look at your mother as the muse.
And if you look different, for me, I looked very different than my mom. My mom, like I said, she didn't have to press her hair. She didn't have to do anything. You know, she was very fair skinned, and that was a time period where skin tone was much more
important,
focused on than it is now.
I remember growing up, another thing that stuck with me, a dear friend of mine, God rest his soul, he passed on, Michael Dunk. And I remember him looking at me in 8th grade, and he said, because, you know, I've always been the rapper, the, you know, into fashion, this and that. And I remember he said to me, he said, the prettiest dark-skinned girl would never be as pretty as the ugliest light-skinned girl. I remember him telling me that in 7th grade. And I looked at him, I said, are you serious? I said, I'm dope. I said that, but in my heart, it's, again, this is 7th grade. It stuck with me to this day.
Yeah.
That he would think that. And so people don't realize, I don't even know if that's even still a thing today.
It is. And I did a study on it with girls because I wanted to know if they were still struggling the way our generation did. And they are. It's just so much more, you know, than that, because it's body image in a different way than it was then. But I looked up, I did some research, and there's so many hip hop records that mention Redbone being preferred over anything, right? So when you look at it, and it's by people that, ironically, like people that have children that are friends,
that look like us.
Yeah, that look like their mothers.
I remember thinking, oh my God, you can be absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and be brown, because I remember going to the LL Cool J concert.
Okay.
See, these things stick in my mind, and we're talking about it. I was 15 years old, and I saw this the most beautiful brown girl on stage. She was a backup dancer for LL Cool J. I wish, and if she's out there watching, just know that you made an impact on me. LL was my favorite rapper then, but I was so enamored by her. She was so beautiful. She was brown, and she had an earring in her nose. And I remember being so enamored by her. I came home and I told my mom, I want to get an earring in my nose because she was so pretty to me. And my mom was like, no, you have to get a job. You have to But I was so determined because I had never seen a woman so beautiful to me.
Brown. That representation.
And celebrated
everything. I remember Janet Jackson was that for me, because I always had these big cheeks that I got teased about, that I did not like. And I remember when she was Penny on, I watched Good Times, and someone was like, you look like Penny. She did these big cheeks. And I was like, she's pretty.
She is.
She's pretty. And then when she was on Different Strokes, but then seeing her when she came out, Janet Jackson was a huge inspiration to me, because she was this brown-skinned girl, and she was curvy. Jesus, she was curvy. You know what I mean? She was curvy, and she was and she had these cheeks. She had this beautiful smile, and it didn't look like, because, I mean, let's just be honest, a lot of the women that were on television during that time were biracial. And so my mother had features like that. So for me, seeing just a brown skin, you know, it felt very much like brown was average or less than. You know, so to see Janet Jackson, made me I'm like, wow, she's just she was everything. I remember when I tried out for varsity cheer, I did it to miss you much because I was like, I need Janet Jackson's energy with me, you know. But that's it. Just shows you how important representation
Oh,
is.
it is. You know, we've always talked about it, but just sitting here going down memory lane and me thinking about my own, because I've always felt like, oh, that didn't bother me. That doesn't this and that. But I think it
does.
It does. I think it did kind of impact me somewhat. But let's go back. So college was always a mandatory thing for you off to college, right? Freshman year, great. Did you fall in love freshman year?
I went to college with a fiance.
Wait a minute, hold on. So you left high school engaged?
I was engaged in high school to my high school sweetheart.
So your mama let you?
She did. She didn't. Well, at that point, you know, I'm feeling myself, and my mom was not on board with it. But, you know, what can you do when your kid is, you know, I've got good grades, I'm going to college. I actually turned down a scholarship for Clark because my fiance at the time, his parents, he came from a 2-parent family that was a lot better off than we were. So I was on scholarship. He didn't have a scholarship, so he couldn't go out of state. So he had to go to University of Oklahoma. And so that's how I ended up at the University of Oklahoma.
So what did your mom say about you turning down?
She just was like, I think Clark was kind of like the unknown because she said if you go, she wouldn't have been able to like fly me back and forth home, right? Because we were doing a lot better. My mom was a nurse, but it was me and my brother, and it was still difficult. So I remember her saying that she wanted me to take the opportunity, but it was concerning because she didn't know how she would be able to navigate that. So I'm in love. I'm thinking that I'm, embarking on this journey of adulthood. And so I went to University of Oklahoma. Actually, he tore up the paperwork.
For Clark?
For Clark. He tore up the paperwork.
What?
And
let me have found out somebody tore up my daughter's paperwork, okay?
He tore up the scholarship. I'll never forget that. And then
oh my goodness, I would have went off.
Yeah. She didn't know all that. She thought I made the decision.
Okay, so let's back up though. That's a little aggressive.
It ended up being that way.
Yeah, that's some red flags right there. Tearing up scholarships.
It was. And see, I never even thought about that. But later it ended up being a relationship that became abusive when we got to college. We got away from our parents.
Okay.
And we got to college. The relationship did become abusive.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that because I have a daughter that is about to go into her senior year. So I have so many questions that I have about when, where, how, what do I do, the conversations to have, to look out for.
Yes.
So you kept some of the stuff a secret from mom, right?
Secret from my mom.
Okay, so you go off to college. Mom's still thinking that you're with Prince Charming.
Well, my mom knew. She didn't know probably that there was abuse, but she knew that she didn't like him.
Okay, so mom didn't like him from the beginning.
Mom was not on board.
So what was it? She thought you were moving too fast, or
she
what was the deal?
She just didn't like him, and I think she didn't like him. She saw probably that he was a little possessive, and I remember she said he could not come pick me up. He would have to park down, around the corner, and then I would leave and get in the car with him. But it's interesting, Ebony, because he was able to do that because he had means, right? So he had a very nice car. He would take me shopping. He bought my prom dress.
And probably told you were pretty.
Of course.
So,
he would have been chasing me since middle school, So he became a provider, right? So when my mother couldn't get, he could. So wardrobe, I remember my uncle got me a car and he put the stereo system in it. He was doing really well. And but in college, all that providing and getting you things, then it became, I don't want you to go out with your friends. You should stay here with me. And then there became physical abuse.
Okay. Do you know if there was abuse in his household?
I don't know that there was abuse in his household, but I know, and I don't want to give too much because it's his story, but I do know that he had learned that he was adopted and he was dealing with that. And I think when you're a teenager, specifically when you get to those latter teens, your parents aren't the people that you turn to, for help. He was struggling with dealing with his where he came from and if he had been lied to. And I was the constant, in that. And I think a lot of times young people begin to rely on each other in a very unhealthy way. And I remember him, you know, whenever I would want to go out or do something different, it was like, you're all I have. You know, I don't know anything else. All this other stuff is happening. You are the constant. And that was a lot at 17.
Yeah, that's a lot. And were there red flags before you left to go to college that mom should have seen?
There were I think I hid a lot from my mom. And so I don't necessarily, I don't know what her perspective would be on that, but I know I hid a lot from her. And when I realized she didn't like him, I stopped talking to her about the situation, because then it became like I have to make sure this works, because I've told her that he's the one and he's amazing, and if it would be admitting that she was right.
And sometimes what I find as a parent is that if you push too hard one way, you're basically pushing them directly into it.
Yeah.
So you got to find a fine line
It's hard,
of
though.
supporting, but not being too anti, but being there for them and so forth. So you go off to freshman.
Yeah.
Okay. And when do you guys get married?
We did not. We did not get married. I met another young man.
Well, okay. So this wasn't, okay.
This was not the husband.
Okay.
So I got there and we ended up breaking up because he was just too, it became very abusive. Police got called several times to the room. Roommates, saw different things happen.
Let me say something, Christal, and this is one of the things I tell people all the time. And the period that we grew up, it was not unheard of for young black women to experience a lot of abuse, and individuals just thought it was normal.
Yeah.
So when we hear about the things that Diddy is being said to have done and seen,
that we've seen him do,
it's shocking for a lot of people today. But back then, a lot of black women suffered in silence. I remember having an extremely possessive boyfriend too in high school, and off into college. And it was not normal. It was not normal. Again, and I hid a lot of things from my parents as well.
And then being a mother later of a daughter, and my daughter went through a situation with an abusive boyfriend. It's kind of hard to, it's hard. It's a hard line to navigate.
I think I would kill somebody, though.
I wanted to. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, I mean.
No, I wanted to, but when I was going through it, I didn't think of myself as, it's almost normalized. So I remember an incident, and it would always happen when I would try to break up. I would say, I don't think we can be friends. I just think this is too much. He would have a tantrum, and he threw a book, and the book hit me in the eye, and my eye was... it's like a blood clot in my eye. And I was embarrassed. And I remember going back, and it was like, well, I didn't want to do that to you. I'm so sorry, but you said you were going to leave. And so that pattern of abuse, it can be very difficult for girls to realize what's happening, because you feel needed. And I think it's a basic human instinct to want to feel needed. You feel he just loves me so much that he did this because he doesn't want to be apart from me.
And you felt beautiful again.
And I felt beautiful. And when I break up, I remember going out to my car, and there were balloons all over the car with this long letter.
And all your friends, everybody's looking like,
he loves Christal.
Yeah,
he really loves Christal. And some of my friends didn't even believe it was as bad as it was, because he just loves Christal so much. Even his guy friends, he crazy about you. But it was, and then later they said, oh, we see now that it really was an issue. But it was very, I had a car, he had my stereo put in my car. He had a key made of my apartment when he took the keys to my car. So my roommate later told me he would come in, because I had an apartment off campus, he would come in and go through my stuff when I was not there.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know that.
Is he locked up today?
He's not, I don't know where he is, God bless him, but so what ended up happening is, when I tried to move on, I had another guy over, and he came in, he didn't break in, he came in with his key. And that's when we learned that he had a key made. So it was a lot of really dangerous.
So that was drama.
Lifetime movie stories.
Drama. Okay, so hold on. Had y'all broken up yet when you had old boy at the house?
We had broken up.
Okay, y'all broke up. I just want to make sure, Christal, because we
had broken up, but it was people knew of us together, right? But I had been trying to break it off, but that was the
final straw. So when he came in, it just became a whole situation.
It was a hot mess, Ebony. They had a fight, but he took back all the things that he had bought me, grabbed all the clothes, took the stereo out of my car. He just went crazy, called the police. It was bad.
Okay.
Bad.
And so then this so happens to be the man that you ended up marrying
That was
after.
the man
So you probably felt like, okay, this is my prince in shining armor. He saved me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you guys get married?
We got married our sophomore year in college.
Okay, now again, girl, I would have a cow if Lexi come home talking about getting married. What?
Yeah, sophomore year in college.
So what were you in a rush for?
I don't know. Now that I think about it, because I don't know. I think back and I realized that there was, through therapy.
Okay.
I've done a lot of therapy and things. I don't think I ever felt safe because we moved. Things were never really, there was not a lot of security in my home. So I think I was looking for security. And I also had this idea because of what I had seen that I wanted to create this perfect family that I watched on the Cosby Show.
Was his mom okay with him getting married?
Nobody was okay, but he came from a very extremely affluent background.
Okay.
His mom and dad were very, very well off. And it's funny because my ex, the first boyfriend I was with, was very possessive.
Okay.
He was very romantic, but he was also very possessive. So this guy was like, you can do what you want. So because I was on a rebound, I was like, oh, this is easy. I can breathe. But that didn't mean I needed to be.
But what made you say I need to get married though?
I think I just felt like that was the next thing. I think, and growing up, most of my friends that I went to high school with, they got married. Most of them married their high school sweethearts, and they're still married today. It was a community that was very much like, you go to school, you go to college, you get a husband, you get married, and you come back and get a good job. And
peer
that's
pressure?
The good life.
You think it was peer pressure?
I think I pressured myself into thinking this is how I create the life that's different than I grew up with.
Okay. So you get married,
Get married, have a baby.
Okay. So how soon after getting married did you have a...
The next year we had the baby, got pregnant.
Okay. And his mom, your mom, what are they thinking at this time?
They're just like, they're quiet, but they're supportive, but...
And you're still in school?
Still in school.
So that's a good thing. Did you ever take any time off?
I did not take any time off.
Okay.
In fact, I had to go to school during winter break to make sure that I stayed up with on my course because I had to slow down and take lesser hours one semester from being pregnant. But I made that time up. Very ambitious. Never considered leaving school. Walked around college on campus with everybody else, pregnant, married, never ever stopped.
His mom did not have a problem with you being from a non-affluent background.
She could have.
And getting her son to be her husband, lock and stock, because that's what I would have been saying. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
okay.
And they were from a very affluent family.
Okay.
So she was very tight-lipped, and I did feel like she was not necessarily happy with it. But again, you're at an age where parents, I did feel like maybe she doesn't like me that much. But I got to know her, and actually we became very, 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 very close.
Okay.
But yeah, it was very obvious that was not the road that she wanted for her
For
son.
him. Okay. And so marriage, how long did you guys stay married?
Stayed married for 12 years.
12.
Yeah,
So that's a huge clap for that to last for 12 years. Okay, so you ended up having how many children? Two. And were they before graduating from college?
My son was right after I graduated. I had my daughter while I was in college and had my son after graduation.
Okay. And so I know, marriage itself, Christal, is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
But it's specifically when you get married so young, because you really don't know what life is. You don't know who you are. You don't know what life will, throw you. You don't know if what you love today is what you're going to, then it's just a lot. And so me personally, I got married young, but not that young. But I would not advise people to get married young.
I wouldn't either.
I would not advise. So the 12 years that you did, you were married. What made you and him say, "Wait a minute, I'm going to call it quits"? Because most times the marriages, they struggle around 5 to 7 years, and most marriages don't make it past.
Yeah,
that point,
we skated past the 7-year itch. And I'll just be honest, I would not suggest that, especially in this climate, right? For my daughter, I'm glad my daughter and my son haven't done that. But I would say I would have been fine staying married, in that relationship.
Really? So you regret?
I don't regret.
Okay.
I don't regret. But it wasn't, we had 10 amazing years. I didn't have the, I don't have the story that a lot of people do when they get married young. We were really best friends. We really both were, committed to our family. And what ended up happening is we went through a ridiculous financial struggle, and that ended up being infidelity. So that, and the way I handled being aware of the infidelity, ended the marriage.
Okay, financial struggle is different from infidelity.
But it can lead to that, and I'll tell you how.
Okay.
So financial struggle, and I ended up getting sick, right? So I had cancer, and we had no money. So at that point, husbands who are usually used to fixing situations are unable to fix it. I don't have the money to fix it. I can't fix the cancer. And so...
and mom and dad, affluent, didn't...
Mom and dad helped, but at this point, we've been married we're in our early 30s, so we're definitely on our own. But I think it's important to have people around you that are supportive of marriage, right? All of our friends were still single. We moved here to Atlanta from Oklahoma. I moved here because his job transferred him here. They told us you're going to either go off payroll or move to Texas or Atlanta. So we moved to Atlanta with 2 kids, no one here. So you're in a place where you don't have any support, and then the job lays you off anyway. It was during that horrible time when there are a lot of people losing their jobs in the telecom industry. And so looking back on it, it had to be difficult for him, being a father and a husband. I'm not making the money. My wife is angry and she's sick. I can't help it. And then there ended up being an affair on his part. Mm-hmm. And I learned about the affair, and I'm like, I've been sick. I got these kids, and how dare you?
And
do
there's
this?
no coins.
There's no coins.
And you cheating.
And this is ridiculous. Like, so, and it's out. Like, people at your job know.
Whoa.
So I immediately.
So you think he did that to try and embarrass you?
I don't think he did it to embarrass me. I think because they moved him to Dallas. I don't think he did it to embarrass me. I think he did it because he didn't have anyone to talk to about what he was dealing with. Mm-hmm. Because what I learned, and I again, therapy, a lot of times when there's an issue that a husband can't fix, he goes someplace where he feels like he can fix it. Not that, I'm not excusing that behavior. Mm-hmm. It's wrong behavior. It's totally wrong. But I remember him saying to me, when I call you, you're just sad all the time. And when I talked to her, she laughed at my jokes. And I'm like, I done heard these jokes.
But what is she laughing at? I mean, if he wasn't taking care of home, I know she wasn't getting nothing on this.
Well, she was married too.
Okay.
So, and her husband was sick as well.
Okay, so
they were a relief for each other. Almost like, you could get a drink, something to get your mind off of. Mm-hmm. And I mean, sex is probably the best way to get your mind off of something. Someone laughing, someone feeding your ego. Whenever you call home, the ego is not being fed. Because I'm like, what, the bills is here, the kids, I'm scared I'm going to go back into dealing with this cancer, and so. And
he didn't have any answers.
He had no answers. And so when I found out, I left an hour after that marriage was over. So I found out at 10, by 12 o'clock, I was on a bus coming back to Atlanta, and we never, ever attempted to reconcile.
Okay, so this perfect marriage for 10 years, and you could walk away from that in 2 hours.
I walked away because, number one, I had dealt with cancer, almost died. We had gone through a lot of hurtful, being in a situation where we had to lose a lot of things because we lost money because of his job. And I also was raised by my mother and my grandmother. And I remember thinking in my head, if my mother knows I stayed with a man that did this to me, she's going to be upset with me. Like, this is not what you do. When your husband cheats, and then I said to him, you call her right now and tell her that you cannot do this. He refused. So to me, that was...
He made his choice.
He made a choice.
He made a choice. Mm-hmm. So, Auntie Christal today, what would you have told young Christal then?
Slow down. I think the divorce probably needed to happen. because we were just two different people. And I see that now. We're totally different. But the way that I went about it was totally immature and I didn't have an auntie to say, girl, hold on. The way that you're doing this could hurt you more, could hurt your children more. And inevitably it was just not healthy. And I just was I was moving based on emotion, totally based on emotion, you know.
So what happened between him and her?
They're no longer together.
Okay, so they
were together for a while. And then
How did you deal with that?
I tried to murder. I mean, there were several times when I wanted to. If they had been in Atlanta, it would not have been healthy, because I felt like everything that I had ever worked for. I was a kid that grew up thinking that the perfect family, I could attain that, and I had that. So I saw this woman as the person that destroyed that perfect family.
Do you still see her as that?
No.
Right.
I don't. I've forgiven him, and I don't even think about her.
Right. Because as you get older, you often realize that she's not a factor.
She's not a motherfucking factor.
Right. It's him. It's him. And dealing with what is happening between you and him.
Yeah, and I realized there was a lot that he didn't say. So he probably was not happy. I can look back on the marriage and see things that I did wrong and see things, but again, I don't excuse his behavior.
But you didn't know he wasn't happy though, right?
I did not know he wasn't happy.
That's the part that gets me. So I often tell people this too, Christal. People who believe that their marriage is perfect, you're not being realistic. You know, when I hear people say, oh, he and I were together for 20 years and we never had an argument. Honey, you got something going on, okay?
Somebody is holding some stuff.
Resentful. Or letting it out somewhere else.
Absolutely.
That's impossible. So it's definitely something else if you were with him for 10 years and was able to walk away in 2 hours and not look back.
Well, it's not that I didn't look back. I was broken. I mean, I went through probably the darkest. I would not wish that on anybody, you know, what I went through. It was not easy. It was very hurtful. But I think, you know, you got to think about, I remember I was talking to this therapist and she said, you just went through cancer and finding out that your best friend betrayed you. Like, that's a lot to digest in less than 2 years. It was really a year and a half that from having surgery. And then because I had surgery in May, I found out about the affair, you know, later that year. So it was a lot to deal with. You know. So
you walk away. You don't look back. You have the kids, and you're back in Atlanta.
I'm back in Atlanta. I have nowhere to live.
Okay.
I don't even have a car. I have clients because I had started my business, but my business, I'll be honest with you. I mean, my business up until then was just the fluff, because he was an electrical engineer, very brilliant, earned a great salary. So I never paid attention to, I didn't have to worry about money.
If somebody paid their retainer or not.
No, I'm just working. I really work because I love this. It's my passion, and I'm trying to get my feet wet. So the job that I was working for the other young lady, it wasn't much pay there, but that wasn't important. And so afterwards, I had several clients. I had left her agency, started my own, but again, I wasn't really focused on. Even when we went through the trouble time, it wasn't as troubled as I learned later. I didn't even pay attention to like putting gas in my car, like how much the gas is. I'm just filling the tank up. I come back, I have no car, I have nowhere to live. A client says, you can come and stay in our spare bedroom.
Wow.
And I did.
With your babies?
No, they were with his parents.
Okay.
They were with his parents. And I stayed there. And I had nothing. I had nothing because I put all our stuff in storage, and I had taken my stuff because I was going to relocate to Dallas. So I come back to Atlanta. I'm in a spare bedroom. I didn't have a bed. They got an air mattress, fixed it up for me. I didn't have a computer, and you know, for what we do, if you're going to get back into it, you got to have access. So I would get on a bus and go to the library every day, and I started building my database back up through. At the library, going for like 3 hours a day. I would walk, I would catch the bus, and then I had a client that said, I got this old car, this old Honda Civic, you know, I can give you that instead of a retainer. Cool, $1,500, cool. And so I did that for 3 or 4 months. saved up enough, got back into clients, got enough money to get a 2-bedroom apartment, didn't have any furniture or anything in it, and went and got my kids and brought them back.
You know, Christal, people don't understand the grind and the hustle of what it was like when we started. You know, what's funny is that a lot of people think they can post a flyer on social media and now I'm a publicist. No.
Or get a person into a club. That used to irritate me to death. That irritates my skin.
Yes.
Because that's really what, you know, the new school publicists started doing. I can get you in an event. And I'm like,
An event.
get them in an event. Do they need to be at that event?
Right.
Why are they there?
Right.
So I remember that I was doing something with one of my clients, because I've been blessed to be with Chili and T-Boss since 2005. So I was doing something for them, and I would get publicists that would send credentials for their clients. And really, you know, we were doing a big thing for Chili with the Microsoft store. And so Chili at Microsoft, I'm inviting media to come out to talk to her. I want my client to come out to the event. Why does your client?
It's media. No, worse than that is when you have the publicist submitting credentials for their client, for the client not to show up, but for them to show up. I'm just saying, at this point in time, you have all these so-called people who are publicists, but they want to be celebrities. Like, which one are we going to do here?
But see, that's the thing. When I started, we wore black. We had to wear black. This is told. Now I have changed with the times, but initially when I started, we wore black.
It hasn't changed, just in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, right? In Atlanta,
because when you go up to New York and they'll look at you like you crazy.
Yes, that's true. But I remember being at one of the biggest red carpets that I've done with Chili. We were at Think Like a Man in LA. The publicists are in black with the tag. You can tell, and they all look very stressed, and they're all moving their clients around. This city, you got people that look like you can't tell the difference between them and their client. They feel entitled. It's just totally different. So
they're all on the red carpet top. Or take my picture.
And then get upset. If you don't get entitled, they feel entitled to it. It's crazy. So but I'm thankful that I had that. And I think a lot of them just don't know.
They don't know, but they also, it's embarrassing.
They don't want to know, though.
They don't want to know. It's also very embarrassing for the industry.
But it's also why LA and New York don't respect the publicists that are here in Atlanta, because a lot of them don't understand. I mean, I'm like, I went to school to do this, and I went to work for someone that was brilliant. She had been the publicist for LaFace. So she had worked with all these artists when they were really doing artist development. You really had to work with your publicist to make sure the publicist crafted the statement for you to say, we media trained you so that you knew exactly the story. You stuck to the story. No chat GPT, no social media to where the client is doing their own interpretation, you are the voice of that client when it comes to media. Now you have media that will be trying to, have a relationship with the client outside of it's just totally different than it was.
It is. It's abysmal. It is.
It's
terrible. Okay, but the point of me bringing that up though is when people, I heard a lot of folks that had a lot of negative things to say about Diddy and making the folks walk across the bridge to get the cheesecake. Okay. I want to get your point of view on that. What are your thoughts about him making the kids and making the band walk across the...
I had no problem with that.
I didn't either. I didn't either.
I had no problem with that. In fact, I media trained the first group of making the band. Well, I was one of the media trainers. But that I don't feel like there was any issue with that. I feel like people want to, and they were actually very entitled. They felt like if you watch the show, we grew up watching the show. These people now are watching the clips from back then, and
they're going off of the lifestyle of how today
is. But to me, when I went to work for Rhonda Baraka, I had been in corporate 7 years. She had a company up and running in entertainment. I knew corporate PR from Tulsa, but I moved to Atlanta and realized I don't know this terrain. I told her I would come and intern for her. At 27 years old, I would come in and intern with degree and background experience. You have people now that feel like you should give them an opportunity, or they feel like they can do what you do with no experience. So I was willing to intern. I was like, I will go find whatever you need because I understood that I needed to learn. So I feel like Diddy, it's crazy, but I know you and I have these conversations offline. He really did present a blueprint for how hard you have to work if you want to.
If you really want it.
He was the embodiment in that way of Black excellence. Now, on the other side of it, there's a lot of ugliness, but my problem is I've been in this industry since 2005. Everyone that I knew a lot that was going on, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever worked with any powerful, be it a label or a subsidiary, that there was not some type of harassment or inappropriate behavior. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That was the culture of the industry.
Sexualized, extremely sexualized.
Extremely. And that was and everyone turned a blind eye to it.
It wasn't just always the men that were heavily hypersexual. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the women came in there with the intention of
using that to get there.
I'm going to bag. This is going to be my husband,
I want an opportunity.
I'm going to be in Jamaica next week, or whatever.
I have been in the studio with young women that would come in when I was working with different clients and start taking your clothes off in the vocal booth. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait a minute. He has not even asked you mm-hmm. to do that. Mm-hmm. What is, what, mm-hmm. and a lot of the guys be like, Christal, get out. Because when she's here, but I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
they're like, you're blocking. You blocking, Christal.
I was blocking, but I was just like, first of all, he has not asked you to reveal your mm-hmm. titty. Why are you doing it? If there was money involved, I could say, okay, well, now she's making a business decision. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times what I had to learn is that women they understand the weakness. They understand the response that they get at moment, but then they don't think about what's going to happen after that moment. You can get his attention. Mm-hmm. I've been places and girls start kissing each other. I'm like, are you bisexual? They're just trying to get some attention.
Anything.
Trying to get some attention. Trying to get, and their goal is to get into a sexual position. And then when that man doesn't respond to you the way you wanted him to, or you don't get what you wanted long term, now you're upset. Mm-hmm. But that does happen a lot.
And it's just, that's why when this whole case was going on, I remain quiet about a lot of things because of the inner workings that we know, things mm-hmm. that we see. And today, what flies wouldn't have flew back then, mm-hmm. vice versa. Mm-hmm. And I do know that walking across that bridge back then, I did not see anything. Mm-hmm. Because this is the thing I will say. Success. Mm-hmm. The truly successful Diddy, Jay-Z's mm-hmm. are 1% of 1% mm-hmm. of 1%.
Absolutely.
And the only way you can get there is that you must be willing to do what no one else would be willing to do.
That's true.
So I often say you have a choice in life. Mm-hmm. You can choose to do that. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to do that, this will be what it comes out to be, or you can choose not to do it, and you have to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. But you can't then say that I still have to give you
the rewards.
Rewards.
There's another scene. I remember because people talk about the cheesecake, and I'm like, they walked across the bridge. Okay.
Yeah. Put your tennis shoes on.
They also did not know the lyrics to Biggie's. One More Chance. How do you go and not know the lyrics? That's embarrassing. But today, in 2025, we held an audition for TLC dancers. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many people showed up for that audition? Now, Ebony, you and I, we're on the same page.
Yep.
If I'm going to audition, first of all, I'm going to come looking like a TLC dancer.
Yep.
TLC has been around for 30 years. You should know every single dance.
Should.
People showed up for that audition not knowing the songs or the dances. I don't feel like you don't want this.
Mm-mm. You don't really want it. And so that's my point. I think when you hand things over, it's easy. And to be honest, let's back up. The fact that they didn't know is even more egregious because
it is.
With ChatGPT and Google and YouTube, when we were coming along, there was none of that. So you either knew it or you didn't know it. And I also remember, too, because I used to be a rapper back in the day, Christal. Mm-hmm. You couldn't call yourself a hip-hop artist if you didn't know your history and you didn't know who was who. It's amazing to me now when I talk to some of these kids and they don't know who Biz Markie is or who KRS-One was or Big Daddy. How do you not know some of the pioneers, but you call yourself a hip-hop artist?
Because there's no respect.
No respect.
Back then, there was a respect for your past. I studied Patty Webster, all these different publicists that came before, and I had honor, respect for them. Even sometimes you meet people and they may not treat you, in the nicest way, but it's not about that. It's about the fact they've paved the way in this business.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so, to me, walking across the bridge is earning your stripes.
That's it.
Right? But how dare you show up to Bad Boy and not know the biggest hit that came from that camp? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that now, a lot of it, there was a lot of salaciousness for television. But one thing I will say, and I definitely am not condoning any of the other behavior.
No, not at all.
But you can't take away, even like with Cosby, like you got to be able to acknowledge what that person gave to the culture and take the good and throw away the bad.
That's the part that's hard for me because it's so much of our childhood. Like, for instance, I'm going to say this and then we won't say, because I know I probably get massacred in the comments about this, but when we talk about Audrey from the group that he had, I don't want to say it because it's too much, but I understood why he fired her. Now, outside of, I don't know if there was any sexual thing, but what I saw on air was that she was a cancer to the organization. She caused issues, she brought up problems, she was trying to initiate the other girls into believing how she felt. And when you have an organization, all it takes is one cancer, and that one cancer can destroy,
can bring everything down.
Now, whether or not, again, not understanding anything that happened off air, but what I will say in business, you do need to get rid of. One of the things that I've learned is you fire fast, you hire slow.
I love that. That's true.
Yep.
I'm so slow to hire. Everyone that ever worked for me had interned for me and been there. But I will even take it a step further. And I'm not condoning. And I know people don't listen, so they will hear what they want to hear.
They'll hear what they want to hear.
But I will say this: you're right about the cancer to the group, but also it's the brand, right? And so once you start acting off brand, then you no longer fit this brand.
Right.
And so one of the things that he said to her in that firing was, you are the reputation that she was building did not align with what he wanted for the group. I know I've always had young women working for me, and I'm big on looking at their social media first. And if you come to work with my company at the time when I was still doing PR, we dress a certain way and we act a certain way. And if you are acting outside of that brand, then you don't belong.
You don't belong, because you will, as I tell people, trying to block me on social media is an easy way to just have to be let go. Right, and the reason being is because it's not that I'm trying to manage what you do. It's because I have other very high profile clients. Some of the clients have to have CIA credentials. And if they go off and search on individuals that work for us, and they go to their page and somebody is twerking and in the middle of a drink-a-thon, I could lose the account because of what you're doing. You
represent the brand.
You represent the brand.
It's not personal, and but I do care, because unfortunately, if you do something that, because you're drunk and something happens, the client is not going to be upset with you. They're going to be upset with me. My name is on the business, so I'm the one that's going to have to carry that burden. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. So in that situation, I'm paying for this group. I'm paying for the money that I'm investing. I'm investing in you, and you no longer want to abide by the brand for this, then you need to do your own thing. You need to invest in yourself.
And that's it. And I think what Diddy was saying to her was, this is not the vision that I had for the org. And this is what people have to realize. When a person is investing their money, time, and energy in you, if it's not in alignment, I don't have to still give that to you. That's the part that people have to realize. I don't have to do that. And Diddy was saying it's not in alignment. And you maybe find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the question is, she said that he blackballed her. That's a whole nother conversation. If he really blackballed her, or maybe it just wasn't a fit in the industry.
Maybe, which a lot of times when you have success because of someone else, you can confuse that.
Oh, say that again.
So even for publicists, and the true test of a great publicist is I've had wins multiple places. That's the only way you know if you're good at what you do. If you have a win with someone else who has been winning and you reap the benefits of that, you can sometimes people get confused. Clients' talent does it a lot and think that it's them and it's really the machine behind
That's
them.
right.
And so there's not really a way to gauge how successful she could have been unless she was able to do that on her own without him.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's
because
right.
she was reaping the benefit of having a relationship. Everything that he had, they had access to. So, and when he went away, everything went away.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot, and I think people have to realize. I think they have the saying that you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. You're listening to you're reading your press clippings and not paying attention to the fact that this is directly related to the fact that you were brought into the industry this way.
That's right. That's right. And I think so as we continue to go, because we talked a lot about the industry, but I think also one of the things that you've done over the years is you've become known to be a relationship expert, right? And I think it's important that we talk about that just a tad bit, because there's so many people in this game today that call themselves relationship experts, and they've never had a successful relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I personally don't want to listen to anybody who's never successfully been married and potentially successfully been divorced, because you can then tell me what it's like on both ends of the stick and when it's time to hold and when it's time to fold.
Absolutely.
And I think in this industry that we're in now, you have so many people calling themselves experts and wanting to give advice and have no clue.
That's true, and that's true for everything. But relationships, I think that's one of the biggest problems on social media. Is you have people speaking about relationships that really have never successfully been in one, and they're giving advice passionately like they know. And relationships are something that you really have to. You have to have been in one, because relationships are really about serving another person. And I think specifically, I'll speak for women because I'm a woman, so I can hold women accountable. I don't have the same issues as men, because I know that there are some issues that men have, but I'm not a man, so I don't feel like I'm qualified to speak on men's issues. I can say for women, I see a lot of women talking that have not been in a relationship, and they have no concept of what it takes to actually work with someone, put yourself to the side and focus on making that relationship work. It's not all about what you have and who you are and all of this stuff. I was talking to a friend of mine, because we have a couples group where we have married couples that come together to try to stay together. Like, I'm actively doing this. And one of the guys told me something that changed. I have a book called Dear Alpha Female, and that came from me realizing that being divorced, being married, being divorced, and getting married again, there were things that I needed to change in Christal to make me qualified to be a wife again after being single for so long. Because during that season of singleness, I had become very selfish, because everything was my way. I was the head of the household. I was doing things my way. But you have to kill that if you really want to be married, if you really want to be in a successful marriage, not one that just looks good on social media. I wanted a really healthy marriage. And he said, women are looking, and on social media you hear so many women saying what they bring to the table, and it's the same thing they're looking for in a man. So it's almost like they are saying that they're a great husband. When I was single, I think I would have been a great husband. I was a great provider. I worked myself into a place where I could be a great provider. I didn't have a lot of time, but I was able to provide. That's not the job of a wife, and I think a lot of women don't understand that. If a wife can provide, that's great, but that is not what she brings to that husband that makes him appreciate her. I'm sure your husband loves the fact that you're extremely successful, but that's not what he's looking for at home. And he said, really, women want security, men want love and affection, and a woman that really nurtures them and comforts them. That is the primary thing that we are looking for. And a lot of times, I think when women haven't been in that situation, they have no idea what that even looks like. What does that even? You have an idea what you think it is.
And what I see a lot of is a lot of angry women who project their anger
because they're single.
They're single. And some people could be happily single. But in this case, I see people who don't even have successful friendships, nevertheless successful relationships. So I personally think it's a great thing that you are here giving advice, healthy advice, real advice to relationships, and you've gone through the gamut of it all.
Yeah, and still going through
it. And I'll say this, I know, because you and I will talk for days. But what I will say is you're probably one of the realest. I am so glad that we had this opportunity to talk because, again, most people won't talk about the things you and I talked about the industry, about, the things we admire and didn't admire, about the bad boy season. And also about relationships and things we need to look out for with our daughters. Because I will tell you, I think about some of the things that you shared with me now are things that I will keep in mind as my daughter, heads off to wherever she decides to go.
And you have a beautiful relation with your daughter. I would say, from having a daughter that's a little older than your daughter, one of the things that's kept me in a great place with my daughter, Chanel, is that we are friends, right? At this point now, she's grown, so we can be friends. There's still a respect, but I have told her, I actually had this conversation with her this weekend, it is okay for you to make mistakes. I am always here. There is no mistake that you can make that you and I can't work on together.
That's right.
And that's what my mother told me. My mother, she was not happy, when I dated that guy in high school, even when I got married, but she always made me feel like I could come back and have a conversation with her. And I think that's the most important thing. If your daughter knows that you're there, she's going to deal with some stuff on her own because that's what they have to do. And it's hard as a mother to let them do that. But as long as she knows that there's no way that she can disappoint you in her life to where you will not be there. You may be disappointed because of the circumstances, but not in her.
That's right.
And you're always going to be, she knows that I will always go to bat. If something happens, we're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. And I'm like that with both of my children.
Absolutely.
But I want to say thank you so much, Christal, for coming out today and being so honest and transparent. And thank you guys, and we'll see you next time on Coinology.
Can't keep a little model hands off me. Both in the club, high singing on P. And I wish I never met her at all. It gets better, ordered another round. It's about to go down. Got 6 model chicks, 6 bottles of Chris. 4 Belvedere's, got weed everywhere. What do you say? Need you in your Chloe glasses. Go somewhere private where we can discuss.
You think my hair got longer for real?
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.